Hey fellow watchers of the Multiverse, welcome back to another exciting episode of If I Had Written. This series dives into cancelled projects, pre-writes, rewrites, and custom projects, giving you a glimpse of what might have been or what could be. Today we conclude our journey with If I Had Written, Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 10. If you haven't watched the previous parts yet, make sure to check them out first in the playlist to get the full story. We're rolling out tons of new fanfictions and original stories, and there's so much more to come. By supporting us on Patreon and Substack, you'll get exclusive perks and behind-the-scenes content. Plus, you'll be helping us fund the production of Season 2 of our What If motion comic animations. Your support is so crucial for us to continue creating the high-quality content here and bringing your favorite characters to life in new and exciting ways. Becoming a member means you'll get early access to videos, special updates, and the chance to support more amazing projects. Thank you for joining us on this epic journey through the multiverse. Stay tuned for even more incredible stories and adventures. Location: Kingpin's lair. Peter felt like he was in a dream. Kingpin had just died before his own eyes, and that alone was enough to make him go into shock. This night forever ranked as one of the worst nights for Peter Parker, because he had lost two people almost at the same time. The first was Kraven the Hunter, and now Kingpin. Even though they were his enemies, Peter felt that their deaths were his fault. If only he were there fast enough, or even stronger. Peter felt that he could have saved them. Kingpin blamed Peter for the death of his family, and this whole experiment was going to get them back. When Peter heard this story, he felt like hell, but now, with Kingpin dead, he did not know how to feel. Kingpin's final look to Peter had been that of sorrow and defiance. He was so stubborn and proud that he desired death over being saved by Spider-Man. This was because Kingpin did not want to exist anymore in a world where his loved ones were absent. He felt like another day without them would be like living in Hades. This was what Peter deduced from the whole situation. So in a way, it could be argued that Kingpin actually found peace in the end, because he had gone to finally meet with his family. Peter's inner voice told him. However, a much stronger and louder voice told him that everything was his fault, and inadvertently, he gave in to the latter. Immediately, the wails of sirens filled the air and Peter was snapped out of his thoughts. There was a lot of rubble, and a lot of people were buried under them. Peter considered the idea of leaving them to the mercy of the firemen and policemen, but he decided against it. Even though he was weak and bruised, Peter decided to save the victims. The fact that they were Kingpin's henchmen did not even cross his mind as he started pulling them out of the rubble. Peter utilized his super strength and webs for his activity, and he made good timing. When the firemen arrived, he had already rescued quite a good number of people. Suddenly, Peter's spider sense flared up, and he knew something was wrong. Something was not right. There was a danger in the room, and he could almost smell it. It came from the area of the controls, and Peter moved cautiously towards the spot. However, this was cut short as the cops trooped in and ordered him to raise his hands up. This completely took Peter's mind off of the threat. He already knew the drill. The cops were here to arrest him, because instead of thanking him for saving the city, they actually thought he was the one that had destroyed it. Luckily, even though his mask was torn, it still protected his face and identity. Peter then threw his hands up. With a boyish grin mixed with his Spider-Man's voice, he spoke a word to the cops. "Bye," Peter said, as he immediately shot a web up at the roof and threw himself to the top. Even as the cops riddled the spot he stood at 2 seconds later, Peter then propelled himself to another building with his webs and continued the same movement until he was far away from the cops. One thing that Peter knew would never get old for him was running away from the police. Even though their motives was painful, the chase was always a delight, and it came with a special thrill. For that moment, Peter did not have a care in the world. He completely forgot about all of his worries, but little did he know that they would come back calling. The drastic explosion got the ambulances working overtime in the city. Most of the personnel were so drained, and the ones who carried Kletus Kassady were no exception. The nurse noticed that something was wrong with Kletus, and she tried her best to stabilize him, but nothing was working. She was so drained and tired that she had no clue of what to do. So the nurse poured out her frustrations on the only person available, the driver. She screamed at him to drive faster so they could save Kletus's life. But this worsened matters. The driver sped up due to this, but something drastic happened. The ambulance approached a junction at high speed, with its sirens wailing, but the driver didn't check his sides to notice that a truck was heading towards them at full speed. What happened next was inevitable. The truck crashed into the ambulance, and bodies along with car parts mixed with fire were spewed out everywhere. The smell of gasoline and burnt flesh suddenly filled the air, and other car drivers immediately held their brakes to avoid collision with the car. "There is no way someone can survive that," a bus driver whispered under his breath to the passenger seated just behind him, but something interesting happened. A man stood up with his neck bent unnaturally, sideways, and his right arm detached. It was like something out of a horror show, and an elderly woman who was currently seated in her SUV fainted immediately. She was indeed lucky because she did not get to witness the disturbing incident that took place. The man had taken his detached arm that was a few feet away from him and attached it back to his body. This brought gasps of horror and disbelief from the observers. Then he used his two hands to straighten his neck with the crack. Once he did so, he looked at everyone, and there was hunger in his eyes. There and then the people knew that a predator was born, and he wanted to devour them. Fortunately for them, a small explosion occurred, and this irritated and scared the man away. He then proceeded to jump off the road to a body of water that ran below. Because it was so dark, none of the people who witnessed the whole event could actually see the face of the strange man. If they had been able to see his face, maybe one of them could have realized that it was none other than Kletus Kassady. The Carnage symbiote had fully bonded with him. Location: Kingpin's lair. Peter and the rest of Kingpin's henchmen thought that everything was well over. They thought that the portal had been completely destroyed, and that the breach between their world and other realities had been sealed. However, they could not have been more wrong. In the deep silence of the night, something interesting started to happen, right at the spot where the multiverse machine once stood. The police and firemen had cleared out everywhere, and currently nobody was on site. They had sealed the place, so everybody steered clear of it. However, what happened started when they were around, but they could not see or feel it because it began on a subatomic level. A portal had started opening again at the spot where the machine was destroyed, but it was so many that nobody could see it. The portal had been growing slowly, but gradually, and now it suddenly became visible. Even though it was visible, one would have to look carefully before they spotted it. This was because currently, the portal was in the shape of a dot, but it was incredibly steady and slowly. The city had no idea what it had in store for them. Location: Peter's home. When Peter swung to his home, he could register the surprise and shock on Black Cat's face. She had really thought that he had died in battle. However, this shock was rapidly replaced with overwhelming joy as she rushed to embrace him while tears were still flowing down her eyes. Peter was flabbergasted by her outburst, but it felt nice, and he kind of understood because he also thought that he would not make it. After a moment of crying, In a prolonged hug, Black Cat finally let go of him and apologized, but Peter replied with a boyish grin. This actually earned him a solid punch on the shoulder from her. After a scream of pain, they settled down, and Peter told her what had transpired. When he got to Kingpin's death, his voice got hoarse, and Black Cat noticed. She then comforted Peter that it was not his fault. She told him that Kingpin died out of his own accord, and that seemed to counsel him a little. While they were talking, suddenly the telephone rang, and it startled Peter and Black Cat. He then let up and rushed to pick it up. His guts told him that it was Mary Jane, and they were not wrong. MJ called because she had just saw the news of the explosion and him being the cause of it on the television. She asked Peter if he was okay, and he responded in the positive. "That's it. I'm coming back," MJ said. But Peter quickly objected. He assured her that he was okay and told her to stay back. "I'm fine, MJ," Peter said to her. And he could hear Aunt May supporting him in the background. Peter told MJ that her safety and that of the baby were the utmost importance to him. Peter told her that if anything happened to them, that he would not know how to carry on. This was why he wanted them to stay away from the city until after childbirth and everything calmed down. "But I miss you," MJ protested over the telephone to him, and this melted Peter's heart. He told her that he missed her too, and he could not wait to see her again. However, Peter still stood his ground. He did not want to risk her life and that of the baby. After a few moments and a lot of convincing from Peter and Aunt May, MJ finally agreed to stay. However, it came down to a condition. She told Peter that she would stay if only he would be around when she was giving birth. She wanted his presence on that fateful day. Peter smiled and he swore to her that nothing would stop him from being around to see their newborn child. Apparently, this was enough to convince Mary Jane, and she relented in her talks for coming back to the city. After they conversed for a while before they called it a day. However, once the call ended, Peter felt some sort of guilt, and he knew exactly why he did. The truth was that even though Peter wanted Mary Jane, the baby, and Aunt May to be safe, one of the more reasons he did not want them back was more sinister. The reason was actually a person, and she was Black Cat. Peter did not know what to label the relationship him and Black Cat had. He knew it had some romantic undertone, but both of them did not want to push it. Peter knew that Black Cat had feelings for him, and he also knew that she had feelings for him too. The funny thing was that both of them knew how they felt for each other, but they had respected themselves so far. Even though this was the case, Peter still felt somewhat guilty. Black Cat saw the expression on his face and figured that something was very wrong. She then asked him what it was, but he told her not to bother. However, she was not having it. Black Cat kept hammering up, but Peter did not budge. Fortunately for Black Cat, she did not give up, and after applying pressure for the umpteenth time, the web slinger finally gave in. He then drew in quite a lot of air and heaved it out. After that, he sat down on a chair and told Black Cat to sit down opposite to him. This actually created an atmosphere of familiarity, and Black Cat could feel it. She knew that it was not a drill. "Felicia, we need to talk," Peter said, with a sense of seriousness, and nothing could have prepared Black Cat for what followed. Peter told her his thoughts about the relationship, and it came as a shocker to Black Cat. Peter said it wasn't a lie, but the way he said it hurt Black Cat. Peter made it seem like it was Felicia's fault, and she would not stand for it quite literally. This was because she felt weak to her knees. She just sat down and listened to Peter pour out his heart. After this, there was a moment of silence until Peter urged her to talk. Felicia then told Peter slowly that she was disappointed with him. The funny thing was that she could not even say anything more than that because she still cared about him. She did not want to burden him more, and or even make him worse about everything that had happened. In spite of the venomous accusation he threw at her, made it more overwhelming for her. Amidst tears, she then told Peter that it was fine. Black Cat told Peter that since she was having the problem, that she would remove herself from the equation. She told Peter that she would leave his life forever, and for some reason, the way that she said the words made it seem very true. Peter wanted to protest, but she did not want to hear any of it. With the remaining strength she was able to summon, Felicia stood up and started packing her bags. Peter did not even have the guts to try and talk to her, because a part of him agreed with her. That particular voice inside of him said that Black Cat was leaving to do the right thing. Peter also agreed, but did not know why he felt so bad. It was all so confusing. After a few moments, Felicia came to the living room, where he was with her. She still had tears flowing from her cheeks, and she stared daggers into Peter's eyes and soul. After some seconds of menacing eye contact, she then signed and turned towards the door. "Goodbye forever, Peter." She then stormed out of the house and slammed the door, but Peter did not move an inch. Minutes later, Peter still had not moved. He was still staring at the door, which Black Cat had left, and funny enough, the word ringing in his head was forever. However, the news from the television grew Peter out of his trance. The anchorman was saying something about a tragic and mysterious accident in the city. Apparently at a supermarket. A supermarket had been vandalized. However, no money was stolen. In fact, the only thing missing were the heads of the people in the supermarket. This made Peter sick to his stomach, and all his thoughts and guilt feelings of Black Cat leaving were thrown to the side. Parker quickly put on his suit and jumped out of his window, en route to the supermarket. Peter had never had an accident such as this in his entire history of crime fighting, and it scared him. Little did he know that he was about to go against the stronger version of his old nemesis. Location: a warehouse. Kletus had never felt so much power in his life. He now knew what people meant when they said power was intoxicating, because he was drunk in it. The Carnage symbiote had merged with him, seamlessly, because they seemed to want the same thing: to watch the world burn. Kletus had felt a strange hunger like never before, and this was why he had attacked the people at the market. According to the symbiote, it needed brains to survive, and unsurprisingly, Kletus Kassady did not have a problem with it. He had all the power in the world, and there was nobody to stop him. However, as he said this, a name quickly came to his mind: Spider-Man. Surprisingly, when he thought about the web-slinger, Carnage got angered. Kletus then concluded that it still had some memories of its parent, Venom. Kletus decided there and then that they would need to end Spider-Man in order to get free rule over the city to do as they pleased, without an opposition. Suddenly, Kletus Kassady heard the wails of police sirens and the wailing of helicopter blades, and he knew that they had found him. He was actually surprised that the cops had been able to track him, but to be frank, Kletus and Carnage were not interested in how they found them. All they wanted was to wreak havoc, and they were hungry for it. After a few moments later, a cop took a microphone and was about to tell Kletus to come out with his hands up, and they will not harm him. However, this cop did not even get the chance to say anything. This was because Carnage came barraging out of the building. It was indeed a horrifying sight to behold, as Carnage was a monstrous entity. He was red, and he had blades for hands, with multiple tendrils sticking out of it. The cops were caught unaware, so they started shooting, but this was a big mistake. Carnage immediately went on the offense. His respective tendrils and his blades moved as if they had their own minds. They made little work of the cops and their vehicles. Carnage threw a car at the helicopter, and that was the end of the sky for it. and its crew. He then proceeded to decapitate some cops and juggled some around. However, Carnage realized something was not right. As he continued wreaking havoc, Carnage discovered that the results were milder than it was supposed to be, and the reason for this hit him literally. In a flash of blue and red, Spider-Man kicked Carnage in the face. This sent him flying into a wall. This whole time, Spider-Man had been swinging around to save the people he could. He even saved the helicopter crew, and they were really shaken but extremely grateful. What Peter did not know, however, was that Carnage was unlike any villain he had ever faced. This was because approximately a second later, Carnage rushed back at Spider-Man. It was a sore sight because Peter had no chance. Carnage was too furious and he tore into Peter quite literally. Peter's body was bleeding, and his mask was torn in half. In the sky, a news company was covering the whole situation, and the sick idea of ending the web slinger greatly appeased to Carnage. He then lifted Peter by the head with his left hand and morphed his right hand to a blade. It was time to finish this. However, as Carnage was about to unalive Spider-Man, it was as if he was caught with a whiff of something, and he completely forgot about Spider-Man. He quickly threw Peter away and started running towards the new scent that he had picked up like a crazed dog. Peter was almost on the verge of unconsciousness, but suddenly he saw a black cat peering down on him with care, and he knew that he could not give up. Carnage could not win. Location: the portal. Carnage had felt the portal before he even saw it. He was currently at Kingpin's lair ruins, and the portal had grown to a considerable size. He saw it and grinned. With the portal, he could feel his others. Carnage could feel the connection to the hive. Right there and then he had a sick idea. He would call all his other symbiote relatives to come to his world through the portal, and then, through Carnage, would begin. This was why Carnage started protecting the portal, as it gradually increased in size. However, Peter had been nursed back into some level of wellness by Black Cat. She tried discouraging him from going with her, but Peter was stubborn as always. "If we are going to do this, we need to do it my way," Black Cat said to Peter, and he agreed. She told him the plan and Peter was impressed. She had been taking notes and she was smart as hell. The funny thing though was that when Peter and Black Cat arrived at Carnage's location and saw the portal, Peter threw the plan in the garbage. He was going to do everything within his power to stop the portal from destroying the world. "Are you ready?" Black Cat asked him, and he nodded in the affirmative. Peter did not know what caused the portal to restart, but what he knew, that he had to close it by all means possible. He did not know Carnage's plan, but he knew that he must defeat him and close the portal for good. Fortunately for them, Black Cat had made some sonic gloves, and this would be used against Carnage. Peter assumed that all of the symbiotes have the same weaknesses, and this was what Black Cat did too. They planned to explore the weaknesses of Carnage and take him down, using them. On Black Cat's signal, Peter jumped down and started attacking Carnage, who was very surprised to see Peter. This act of surprise only earned him a few seconds of dominating Carnage, as the symbiote soon got over it and went on the defense. However, Peter was ready this time, and he ducked and evaded Carnage at his every move. Peter's spider sense became so fine-tuned that he was practically invincible. Suddenly, Spider-Man then jumped out of the way because he had succeeded. He had lured Carnage to the spot where Black Cat wanted him. Black Cat was already ready with the blasters, waiting for Carnage, and before he could realize what was happening, she fired it. The sonic blasters did justice to Carnage, and within seconds the symbiote was separated from Kletus Kassady. Kletus was in total anguish, but did not compare to the amount of pain the symbiote felt, because it was literally ripping in pain. After the sonic blasts were off, the symbiote and Kletus tried to merge again, but Peter was faster. He shot a web and scooped the symbiote. After this, he turned and gave it to Black Cat. A sad look, and she knew exactly what to do. Peter then proceeded to run towards the portal and missed the screams of Black Cat. When he reached the portal, he took one last look at her and jumped inside while he tried to use Carnage and his web to seal it off. Peter's plan worked, but Carnage got split on him, and the web slinger found himself traveling through various realities until he hit solid ground. Location: MJ and Aunt May's house. Mary Jane was having a nightmare about losing Peter, and suddenly she jumped from her bed with screams. Labor had started for her. And that is going to conclude the finale of If I Had Written Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 10. Now, the reason that I'm ending it here on a cliffhanger is because I have another If I Had Written that is in development currently, and that is called Spider-Man. Now, there was a comic book series that had Peter Parker and Miles Morales teaming up, and it was so amazing. And I was, hearing different rumors and things about a possible Spider-Man multiverse story that was canceled that had to do with Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man. And so I think you understand where this is going, my fellow watchers, where we're connecting, all these different stories that have been a culmination throughout like a whole year and a half of different storylines. But there will be a finale for, Sam Raimi's Spider-Man within my own type of universe within the If I Had Written series. So I hope that you don't get disappointed. You should actually be very excited because we're doing something very crazy, and each different arc, like Tobey's arc, is still going to be told fully within the Spider-Man series. So it's literally right when MJ has that nightmare, like it continues. So we're kind of a little bit behind with The Amazing Spider-Man 5 through 10. So you can probably assume the teaser, I don't know if you saw it or not, but you can probably assume where the story's actually going, who opened the portal again, or, what's happening. So it's going to be very interesting. I can't wait because I've had a solid plan for these particular series, and a lot of people have been calling me crazy for making a frickin' Sam Raimi Spider-Man 10. Like, who would do that? And I mean, it was never really going to be that. I really just wanted to kind of continue Sam Raimi's Spider-Man with like different episodes, but I wanted to make them long. I wanted to add in depth, but I didn't want it to be this big, Spider-Man 4 storyline. So I was like, you know what, let's just keep numbering them, because I didn't know what to really title them. I mean, I could have totally titled them differently, which each one. So that's kind of what I did with The Amazing Spider-Man Maximum Carnage. And so I'm going to be doing, different titles and different things as we go along with this particular series. So I'm very excited to also announce that we're going to be making different posters. There's going to be 7 different character posters that are going to be coming out, I think, within the next month, with all the villains that we did here on the channel, like Mysterio's design, Vulture's design, Lizard's design, and all of the designs. And so that will be available through the channel. So if you would like to purchase any of the posters, we're gonna have that on pre-order. And so those are If I Had Written posters. And the reason why I wanted to have posters available for you is because any of those are gonna go towards like the complete series being animated in different chunks, because I want to do If I Had Written The Amazing Spider-Man 3, 4, and Sinister 6 motion comic book animations, as well as Spider-Man 5 through 10 animated as well, because I really want to do that animated scene with Kraven and Symbiote Kingpin and Spider-Man and Black Cat and Spider-Man 9 during the portal fight scene, I think that would be freaking crazy. But again, it really comes down to your support, as a lot of this stuff costs tons of money, and I've seen it before. I've seen a lot of people say like, oh, why don't you do like animated stuff and all that? And you know, we've been doing that actually here on the channel for a while. And I do want to say that it does cost a pretty penny to, you know, have all these different things. So that's why I put myself available for hire too as a writer, because I was like, you know, we need to generate as much money as we can to have these projects out for you guys. So it's mainly for you guys. I want it to be for you, and I want you guys to know that I'm doing this for you. So again, I really can't wait for Spider-Man to happen. I think it's going to be after the Amazing Spider-Man 5 through 10, so there's going to be a small gap, but I'm gonna try to get all 5 of those as soon as possible so that we can jump right into Spider-Man. But it's gonna be a long saga. It's gonna be very long, multiple parts, very long parts too. Possibly 2 to 3 hours apart. It's probably going to be over like a 12-hour complete saga. So again, I'm very excited. But thank you so much for all of your support, everybody, for this fantastic support. And I can't wait to dive into If I Had Written Spider-Man, and it's going to be very insane. It's going to be really crazy. We're going to see different storylines and different things connect. You're gonna see tons of things. I'm very excited, and I'm just shocked. But thank you again, and make sure to subscribe, like, share, and turn those notifications on so you and your friends are all up to date with the latest content. But take care, my fellow watchers of the multiverse, and I will see you in the next If I Had Written episode.